I love having a mildly popular website. It's just got so many advantages, like needing to learn how to manage a database or else risk bankruptcy, or the semi-regular libel lawsuit threats I get, or barely making enough in ad money to cover the cost of the server. But more than any of that, I really love the nonstop flood of emails I get from marketing people. Don't get me wrong, I went to college for advertising, so I get it. You do what you gotta do to survive, but also Bill Hicks was maybe onto something when he said, by the way, if anyone here is in advertising or marketing, kill yourself. Just planting the little seeds. Maybe one day they'll take root. You do what you can. Like, if you work in marketing by sending spam to website owners because you think that their science-based feminism website would be perfect for your infographic about get-rich-quick apps, I mean, don't kill yourself, just be a better person, because right now you're a bad person and you should stop that. Anyway, I recently got some marketing spam that I actually decided to open because it was titled simply Abortion Safety. And that's something I actually talk about all the time, so cracked that cold boy open. Jane M. Orient was writing to tell me that her organization, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, had filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court on a case called June Medical Services versus Gee, in which they argued that abortion providers are not currently held to the same standards as other doctors, and that this is resulting in a rate of complications 5 times higher in abortion facilities compared to other medical facilities. I'll be honest, I hadn't been paying attention to this particular Supreme Court case. So my first thought was, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. It sounds like a legitimate organization. And maybe I've been misled about the idea that abortions are incredibly safe and life-threatening complications are incredibly rare. Maybe this particular Supreme Court case is important for protecting women's health. I'll look into it. Spoiler alert, no. No. First of all, I looked up the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons and learned that they think HIV doesn't cause AIDS, that being gay in and of itself shortens your lifespan, that vaccines cause autism, and that smoking cigarettes isn't that bad for your health. They also published an article claiming that immigrants cause leprosy, basically. They wrote, in the past 3 years, America has more than 7,000 cases of leprosy due to immigration, which is not true because, in fact, there have been 7,000 cases of leprosy in the United States in the past 30 years total. But despite these facts, it didn't stop Lou Dobbs from repeating that false claim on CBS to millions of people. As they say, a lie can get halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its pants. So that's the AAPS in a nutshell. And I mean that. They're nuts. The Supreme Court case they're talking about, June Medical Services versus Gee, challenges the notion that states can shut down abortion providers if the doctors do not have admitting privileges to a hospital within 30 miles. This particular state was Louisiana, but a similar law in Texas also got challenged at the Supreme Court a few years ago, where it was found to be unconstitutional as it shut down abortion providers without due cause, leaving women unable to access their constitutionally protected right to medical care. So how did this case end up in the Supreme Court when they already decided it a few years ago? Well, Louisiana's Fifth Circuit Court argued that in their state, this law wouldn't close down any clinics like it would have in Texas. So they ruled that the law should go into effect, and therefore it had to be pushed up to the Supreme Court in the hope that they would reverse it. So the Supreme Court decided to hear it, and the AAPS has filed an amicus brief. That's a document written by someone who's not directly involved in a court case, but who has presumably a well-informed, persuasive argument about it. Pretty much anyone could submit one, so this doesn't necessarily mean that someone on the Supreme Court requested it of them. But still, having the AAPS support your case isn't something that you necessarily want. Again, these guys think gayness causes early death and HIV doesn't. Yikes. In their brief, they compare the percentage of abortions with complications to the percentage of people experiencing complications at ambulatory surgical centers. These are outpatient clinics, like where they sometimes do tonsillectomies, colonoscopies, outpatient surgery you can get done without going to the hospital. They say in their amicus brief that the rate for abortion complications is 5 times higher, but outpatient clinics require hospital admitting privileges while abortion providers do not. They don't cite their source for abortion complications, but honestly, it doesn't even matter. They got the number for outpatient complications from this Kaiser Permanente report, which points out that deaths are rampant at these centers because it doesn't actually matter if the doctors have admitting privileges. Regardless, when things go horribly wrong, the staff just calls 911 and hopes for the best because these centers don't have everything that a hospital has to protect patients. I'll also note that this report did come from Kaiser Permanente. They are a healthcare organization that does everything in-house. So they have maybe a bit of a bias against outpatient surgical centers. So take all of that with a grain of salt. But still, that's where they got their number from. And the document that they are citing makes it pretty clear that their argument is false. Having a doctor with admitting privileges would not lower the number of complications or the number of patients who end up needing to go to a hospital. Meanwhile, when abortion providers started setting up outside of hospitals, researchers did look at the difference in mortality rate compared to abortions done in the hospital. They found that the number of complications in each of those cases was statistically identical, whether the abortion was done in a hospital or in a doctor's office outside of a hospital. I say statistically identical because the number was actually ever so slightly worse for hospitals. In the Texas Supreme Court case, those defending the law were unable to come up with a single case study of any person who had ever suffered a complication after an abortion who would have had a better outcome had their doctor had hospital admitting privileges. Even the politicians who write these laws admit that they are doing it to make abortion less accessible, and it works. In states that enact these laws, clinics shut down. In Louisiana, the doctors at several clinics tried to get hospital privileges and they were shut down, possibly because every hospital around them was Catholic. And you know how the Catholics feel about abortions. Don't do it if anyone happens to be looking. I can't tell you whether or not this case is going to come out on the side of women. The court is now stacked with conservatives, but I will point out that those conservatives ended up being in the minority when it came to deciding whether to hear this case or to let the lower court's opinion stand and let the law go through. So it's possible that they may find the same way they did back before Trump got 2 seats filled. Time will tell. I hope so. Waiting for Indy to stop drinking.